and founder of an online news platform, Sahara Reporters.
Omoyele Sowore is a Nigerian pro-democracy campaigner and founder of an online newspaper, Sahara Reporters. Sowore is the 2023 Nigerian presidential candidate for the African Action Congress Party and previously ran in the 2019 election. On February 25, 2018, Sowore announced his intention to run for president in the 2019 Nigerian general election. In August 2018, he founded a political party, the African Action Congress, for which he contested in 2019. Born on February 16, 1971, Sowore is from Eseodo, Ondo State in southwest Nigeria. Sowore was born in the Niger Delta region of Nigeria. Sowore studied geography and planning at the University of Lagos from 1989 to 1995. He was the president of the University of Lagos Student Union government between 1992 and 1994, where he was involved in anti-cultism and anti-corruption advocacy. Sowore holds a master's degree in public administration from Columbia University.
Gradually, the 2023 general elections inch closer and the presidential candidates will soon begin to crisscross the country. How much of these candidates do you know and what are they promising Nigeria? On a special blend of Democracy Today, AIT will feature the candidates to face the nation deliberately in alphabetical order to rule out their political mantra. It is a no-holds-barred interview coming up Monday to Friday at 7 p.m. Nigerian time. It's a must-watch program that provides an opportunity to assess the candidates who seek to run the affairs of Nigeria. Democracy Today, to find your purposes.
The candidate of the AAC will tell Nigerians how he intends to resolve the challenges facing the country in various sectors. And some of the sectors will be security, education, healthcare, the rule of law, the economy, the corruption, unemployment, especially amongst young Nigerians, value of the Nigerian naira, foreign relations, inclusivity, women and PWDs.
Thank you so much, Mr. Sowore, for joining us on Face the Nation.
Thank you for bringing me.
Face the Nation, of course, as you know, is our presidential interview series, and you are the fourth in the series. Welcome.
Thank you.
So now let's quickly start. I would like to start from asking you, you ran in 2019, you're also in the race now, and it seems you are so eager to become Nigerian president. Why so?
I am more desperate to end the misery that has been visited upon this country since 1999. It was supposed to be democracy. It was supposed to bring in dividends. It's supposed to have brought in developments, growth, and several other great things that would have transformed Nigeria from where it was under military rule to a society by now that should be competing very well with countries that you can say have the same parity with Nigeria in the 70s, countries like Brazil, Malaysia, Singapore, and here we are. We are at the bottom of every terrible human development index in the world today. So I'm desperate to end that. And I'm also, as you know, better qualified than all the candidates that tout themselves as those who should be running Nigeria. In this particular exercise, this dispensation, I have several former governors who have been two-term governors whose states are terribly run. There has been a vice president of Nigeria for 8 years, but nothing to show for it, and several others. I don't know all the candidates, I must be honest with you, but I know some of the major ones. And I can tell you that I'm better qualified to handle this country than they would handle it if they are given the opportunity. They've had opportunities and blown it in the past, and we should not be rewarding failure in this country perpetually.
So, if I understand you correctly, since 1999, when Nigeria returned to democratic rule, democracy had not delivered on the promises that were made.
Absolutely.
What do you think went wrong or has been wrong with our democracy?
Well, part of it, you have to blame those who fought for democracy for it. And in this, I share part of that blame. Because when we were fighting for democracy, I started fighting for democracy since 1989 from the University of Lagos as a freshman in the university. And when we ended military rule, either by an act of force or default in 1999, we left the space for people who did not fight for the democracy, who didn't understand even the meaning of the democracy we were fighting for. We left the space for people who were hiding under their bed when we were fighting to take over the democratic process from us. And by the time people woke up and came back, it was too late. So now we have woken up and we're not going back to sleep until such a time that we deliver to our people the real democracy that was promised to them when I was fighting for it. The real democracy that is practiced where democracy came from, and not to continue practicing other brands and forms of democracy. The one that I'm very popularly known for talking about is morantocracy. It shouldn't be the case.
When you say we have woken up, you probably are referring to those of you who were in the front lines in the fight to enthroning democracy. And all of those comrades, all of those persons who were with you in the trenches at that time are scattered amongst all the political parties in Nigeria today. How do you intend to harness their resources and their ingenuity into helping to reform the Nigerian democracy?
Yes, I think you must understand two different things, or two different levels of people who have woken up. There were people who knew about all this all along. Democracy abandoned their duty post, in my view, in 1999, and either moved into NGO businesses that seriously degraded what we used to be. Some also joined government. Some went into private practice. But there was also, within that period, children that were born, and that people will refer to as children of democracy. They were born around 1996, 1997, 98. Some of them born 1999. Today they are 22 years old. And they didn't see most of what we did because we didn't stay around to demonstrate that this is what we want, for you. But through our efforts, consistently, some of us, they have now come to understand democracy very well. And part of how they demonstrated it, for instance, was in 2012, when there was an upheaval in which they felt that the democracy wasn't delivering justice. And there was an Occupy Nigeria movement in Nigeria. It was all over the world, but the Nigerian one was biggest in size and impact that I remember. And then some few years later, specifically October 2020, NSAS, in my view, woke up a lot more of the generations that had never even thought that they have democratic power to change their social political situation, including economic conditions. Because these are generations that have mostly never seen electricity. Some never had a job, never had, admission based on merit. Some of them never really got any support from the Nigerian state. And they were the generations that were blamed for everything that went wrong, even though they had nothing to do with how things were going wrong. So the next question, of course, is how do we get our people back? Because to be honest with you, Nigeria has happened to a lot of the people you're talking about. We lost one of our greatest fathers in the democratic stroke, Gani Fawemi, for instance, who was believed to have been poisoned in one of the detention centers. Someone who never tasted cigarette died of lung cancer But there are several others that, have been affected by poverty. Some have, been affected by what I call informal repression. When I say informal repression is that, there's a way the state deals with people by proxy. And it's deep state that runs a demented democratic process in Nigeria, has very powerful reach and also deep memory. So some of them were targeted without even the public knowing. But some of them also fell off the wagon. And we've been reaching out to them and talking to them. Those who may not come out completely in support have been giving advice, giving support. And some who have been lost completely also into the system, finding their way back. But of course, if you've been through a pandemic like the leadership of Nigeria has been in the last 20-something years, some might need quarantine for a while.
All right. You see, you talked about your struggle. You mentioned the 2012 struggle, occupying Nigeria struggle.
Yes.
Now, today, there are Nigerians who believe that you're one of those who brought this present administration into power. And if that is their belief, how do you intend to make them understand that you are better qualified than some of the candidates that are running for 2023?
I think you chip in the conversation about democracy and the struggle for democracy by talking about bringing people to power. It runs against the question of democracy or elections. Have you heard about anywhere in the world that one single guy?
No, I said you were one of those.
Okay. Do you know the rest?
Alone.
Do you know the rest?
There are those who have that belief.
Yes,
so you need to.
What I'm saying is that you don't chip in an argument about citizen participation in their country elections by saying that one person brought somebody to. I wanted to make that clear as a primary response. The real response is that it's false. Of course, everybody knows it's true. It's not true. Some of the people who package these things are people who belong to these parties who have been receiving ends of my kind of investigative reporting. I'm a well-known reporter in Nigeria, self-made, who ran a website for the last 16 years now. And he dug deep into the Nigerian society, exposed some of the biggest corrupt activities in the country. It liberated people. It also somehow demystified a number of persons. So I have said it openly. I practice the kind of journalism that make me an offender of the state and its operators. So it's easy to tell a lie. Somebody brought somebody to. People I've never met before, parties I never joined, rallies I never attended. How do you just accuse somebody just flippantly that, oh, you brought somebody? So we have to elevate the next conversation to beyond beer parlor conversations. It's beer parlor to say to me that I brought somebody, but people I don't even know. And I brought them to power, and then they took me to jail, for 5 months. And I couldn't get myself out of jail from people who I brought to power. You can make the argument that, oh, maybe which is always the also next very petty argument. Oh, you lost out. How many things have I lost out from? I've been fighting for democracy and better governance in this particular country on record for 32 solid years now, non-stop. They detained me for 5 months looking for any evidence that I have relationship with any politician. They couldn't find. The case is now stuck. So that there will be accusations. Of course, there's nobody in this world who's been constantly involved in a struggle that fights against powerful interests that don't get attacked in such ways. But that's not the argument here today.
Okay, let's focus on your party.
Yes.
The African Action Congress.
Yes.
How is it different? How ideologically, how is it different from the other 17 political parties that are in the race for the 2023 presidential election?
Yes. So I want to be clear that, and I'm being honest here, that apart from the APC, the PDP, the ADC, the NNLP, I'm sorry, PP,
yes,
and now Labour Party. I don't know several the rest of the political parties. If you do a quiz here, I will fail, actively. AAC, the African National Congress, was established in 2018, August of 2018. So it was about 4 years ago. And when we established it, we brought out our manifesto, we brought out our philosophy, and it was clearly different from the other parties. We set up a website so that nobody will be in doubt regarding what we're about and what we are set to do. And how we're different is that we have philosophy that is socialist, welfareist. It's going to take care of the welfare of the people. We are not a political party who is driven by ideologies that fade and come alive as the weather changes. And the people who are behind AAC are well known as well. We were part of the former student leaders who brought democracy to Nigeria in 1999. One of the people that started AAC was a guy from the University of Lagos who took over from me as also president, University of Lagos Student Union president, Malcolm Fabi, who had a PhD in his 20s and now is based in the US. And we were the ones who went to prison in this country, fought the military, fought school authorities to make sure that education, there was access to education, and there was quality in education, make sure that we deliver this country to democracy before some of us reached the age of 30. By the time democracy was restored to Nigeria in 1999, I was 28 years old. Malcolm was younger. So today I'm 51 years old, and I still haven't seen the democracy that I really fought for and longed to see. So our party is a representation of those aspirations, and ideologically, it is well known that it's ideologically different. It's not a party in which members go to bed as PDP and they wake up as APC on the other side of the bed next morning. That one is very, very clear. But I also want to be respectful to people who may not be very versed in the ideological argument that this is not about label. It's about humanity. And the humanity of Nigerians is that we deserve better, way better than we're getting. In fact, we deserve completely different, service, completely different, engagement from our leaders and engagement from our nation and support from our nation. And that will form the basis of whatever ideological meaning you are trying to read to us. Because if I start running Marxism here on your platform, I'll be confusing and alienating a huge number of listeners.
Okay, now you're talking about your activism in the days of when you were a student.
Yeah.
That take me to what we're passing through in Nigeria now, the education system.
Yes.
The university teachers have been on strike, and the students are at home. So if you are saying you want to be the chief executive officer of this great country, Nigeria, what will be your plan to ensure that we have stable education system in this country?
Let me clarify that a bit.
Yes.
You just spoke about access to education.
Yes.
There's hardly access to education in Nigeria today. What is your agenda and that of your party to ensuring that there is access to education for every Nigerian child?
Our agenda in governance for education is first, access, second, quality, and third, and the most important, is sustenance, and which means funding, heavy funding of education. Education is going to be such a huge bedrock of our administration that we'll take everything is needed to get people, every child. And the easy way to describe it is that it will be a crime during our own administration for a child not to go to school. It won't be a child for the crime not to go to school, but it will be a crime that an officer in charge of education can be prosecuted for. You get me? And it will be a justiciable, issue in our legal system. That is to say that if a councillor or a governor or a chairman of a local government, a commissioner or a minister is not discharging his his duties in the area of education, you can actually go to court and prosecute him or ask for damages that my child did not go to school. I don't want to break it down without making it confusing. That my child was not given a chance to go to school. You will be able to, even 30, 40, 50 years later, be able to sue the state that deprived that child of that opportunity and get damages, get compensated. Just like people are getting compensated by tobacco companies for selling cigarettes to them and not warning them that they are capable of killing them. That is how serious I take education, because I know where I come from. I came from a village in Ondo State where only 6 kids could go to secondary school. And when Chief Obafemi Awolowo free education system came, 150 kids came out of the bush to go to secondary school. They had primary school living certificate, but they couldn't afford to do the secondary school exams that takes a whole day to go from our village to do. So it's going to be that important. So access, quality, and quality is such that I have redefined my own understanding of quality education to eliminate the word basic education. Basic education is no longer enough to compete in the modern world that we are in now. And what is basic education? The one that they give you a razor and pencil and slate. That is basic primary education. It cannot lead you anywhere, because I lived in the US for 20 years. I had 2 kids there. And they are not doing basic education. They are forced to do technologically driven early education. So from kindergarten, they are introducing them to computers. They are having coding classes. Not from primary school, I won't say kindergarten, because kindergarten they don't know much. But from that point where they can start reading, they come home with a laptop issued by their primary schools. It's not that the person donating it will have to go and show it. It's a law that these kids must be provided with the best available educational learning opportunities and materials. And where a child is struggling, they separate the classes, special needs classes. You don't say a child cannot go to school because he can't talk. No, you get the school to make him talk or learn something that his system is capable of processing. So every child is pretty much just injected with a chip to make them useful in life. Whether they can stand on their own or not, education is compulsory. Whether they are sick or well, education is compulsory. Because why? They know that all these child, that these developmental stages are the ones that are going to make the country well in the future. So you better get them well now. Look at what we are doing here. In year 2000, the PDP candidate now was vice president. They set up a committee to go to the US to understudy university, public universities there. Most of the public university senate selected a delegation. And I heard they went to America. I don't know the dates and the number of people in delegation, but there's some intelligence I gathered. And by the time they went and came back, they saw how the universities were. This is year 2000. And, our friends came back and started issuing private licenses to themselves and allowing the universities to go on strike. Universities didn't start going on strike now. They were going on strike even during our time in the 90s. Over, at that time, 1.3 billion naira request from ASU to fund our universities. Before we started this pro-democracy struggle, there was a 120 million naira loan that the World Bank gave to Nigeria to develop universities. Do you know what the university authorities at the University of Lagos did? They were building fences around the hostels. They were not building libraries because they were more interested in those things that enables them to squander the money. So now you have private universities everywhere. You abandon the public universities. But the children that we did not allow to go to school between the year 2000 or 1999 and 2022 are probably part of the bandits that are closing down private universities now. Because very soon, all the universities might have to close down, whether it's private or public. Because any opportunity you lose to give children opportunity to learn, you have also destroyed the future of your own country. You have destroyed even your own personal future, because when you retire, the kids that are supposed to take care of your retirement life, they have also not been trained to take care of people. So somehow it will get to you. It's the reason why I said it at the beginning of the conversation about education. I'm passionate about it. I'm the son of a teacher. My father was my teacher throughout primary. He homeschooled me partially. He was my teacher in primary school because I traveled with him as a teacher, and in secondary school partially too, up to Form 3 before we went to Form 5 in the school that Awolowo created. I'm passionate about teaching because I am about education, because this is so important and central to the development of any. It's more important than the security we are talking about today, because the security issues can be solved temporarily, halted, but without educating your citizens, they'll come back again. Because it's a matter of necessity that when you don't fill that void, another thing will take over the minds of young people. They are their formative ages, impressionable. Everything they see is what they want. But when you provide them school, as you all know, every one of you that has had a chance to go to school, how that relief you have somewhere else to go learn. You have somewhere else to go socialize. You have something else to do with your life that is not just dictated by your parents. That you are developing your mind, your brain, and your concept and context of life in a way that's away from the probably sometimes primitive ways your parents look at and society look at. That's how societies develop. That's how we can compete. Had we invested in education the way we have invested in corruption in the last 30 years, this country will be El Dorado. It may not be El Dorado, but it will probably not be in darkness at night.
Okay. If you take a look at Nigerian budgets today, you will still observe that education is not even close to the amount of money they budget for compared to other issues. And you are already mentioning the importance of educating every child in Nigeria.
Every child. No child will be left alone.
Exactly. Yes. Well, if you're talking about technology, educating them through technology or making them understand technology, what about infrastructure in education?
The infrastructure in education is evolving, just like every lifestyle is evolving. You see, in the next 10, 20 years, the classroom idea of education will start fizzling out. COVID came to teach us a lesson that we should have been learning a long time ago, that the culture of classrooms, blocks, should have been fading out. Technology has already taken care of that. And the kind of education that we imagine in the future is not going to be the education that we are used to, the curriculum-based, heavy paperwork education, but an education that is interactive in nature, such that one day my daughter and the daughter of a white person in the United Kingdom or Australia can wake up in the same class as the child of a person in Kaduna, same classroom, but not a physical classroom, virtual classroom, and they'll get global education. Fantastic global education. And one day there will be a school reunion in which all the students did not attend the same university, physical university, because technology has brought that virtuality into reality. But nobody's thinking about that here. I'm not thinking about an education budget that is still going to be building blocks. I'm thinking about an education system in which you can use temporarily a place where you are watching a match between Manchester United and Chelsea at night, and it will be a classroom the next day. Because pretty much every village has a football viewing center. So why don't you gather young people, say, come, there's a teacher in the UK who wants to teach you. Listen, everybody can even get an earplug in case they don't have, they are too noisy. And they have a couple, instead of 6 teachers, to just manage that class. They will learn the same thing. I said to them, this is your take-home assignment. Tomorrow, they will call you, and the teacher who is on a Zoom control board, dashboard, knows all the names of the student and say, please submit and you upload your assignment using your mother's cell phone that she uses for WhatsApp. Just an app. So that's where the world is going. But you know, when you have this analog mentality, that's the major issue with us. We are not thinking beyond today, but the world is evolving every day. And that's why I keep talking about the qualification of people like us to be president, because even the presidency of Nigeria will get to a day where we don't need a massive residence to run the country. As a rock. One person in a house that can house over 500 people. One person will be living there with all the fence, with all the guards. Nigeria is now being run like on autopilot anyways. What do we need a president with a huge mansion for? I'm just saying this, that thinking creatively into the future is a lot bigger than that. And we are loaded up here, and I'm not bragging, that it hurts my a lot to see kids walking around carrying granola, selling when they could be in school, in a very creative way. And even kids in those places that are displaced can go to school. These applications, opportunities are there already. We are just not tapping into it. So I'm not looking for a budget to go and build and get contractors to be building blocks. We are looking for budgets to create pipelines and bandwidth of internet connection that can train every garden child in case they can't get out.
Okay, Mr. Sowore, we have a lot of ground to cover.
Yes.
Let me move you away from education now. You are quite passionate about it.
Yes.
And let's talk about security.
Yes.
The security challenge you have in Nigeria today is enormous. If you do become Nigeria's president in 2023, you are elected, how will you prioritize security? What, in specific terms, will you do to secure Nigerians, given the current situation where nobody is safe and nowhere is safe?
You see, there's no way we can solve the security problem by just merely labeling it as a security problem alone. A security problem did not start one day. It started because of a number of factors that had been playing against each other over these years that we ignored. One of them is one of the topics we just concluded, education. And as such, in resolving the security problems, you must also holistically break the security problems into 3 areas so that you can start solving them without muddling up issues. And for me, number 1 would be the primary immediate. How do we halt the bleeding? How do we get our soldiers, police, and security agencies to work together immediately, work with partners abroad, equip them, if necessary? And I've said this, I should be proud as president of Nigeria not to mention the word mercenaries, that we should be able to use our people. But the truth is that our forces are too compromised, too weakened to tackle the problem, the magnitude of the problem. So we might need immediate outside intervention. All right. It's just like you want to eliminate mosquitoes from your compound. Maybe you need something that is very strong. Dump it there first. Let the first group die and then clean up after that, and use other means to ensure there are long-term solutions. That's what I will do. Is we need funding. Look, in this country today, the Nigerian police is no longer doing police work. The army is the one doing police work. What the police is doing is megad work. Accompanying people to parties, accompanying VIPs. They are just doing VIP protection. You have to you have 350,000 policemen. Every house you go to in this Asoko area has 6 policemen in front of it, doing nothing, just protecting VIP. Some of the houses have policemen in front of them. They don't have people even occupying the houses because they've reduced the police to nothing. And our security agencies are managed with due respect by incompetent people and leaders, because they are not appointed on merit. They are appointed based on ethnicity, nepotism, religiosity, and those other factors that don't factor into competence when we are looking for people to solve these problems. So I will expand that area also. For instance, if I find a police officer or a non-police officer who knows how to do security work, I can make him IG as the president of Nigeria. This might require that some of the laws have to change, but you can use executive order as president to solve immediate problems, and partner with international organizations, bodies, like I said, if need be, bring in, support that is immediate and very impactful. Because some of these organizations that we're running with, I mean, these non-state actors like bandits and terrorists, they are ragtag, groups. The Nigerian army is claiming now that they've been able to drive Boko Haram out of Borno State. But what they have just done is maybe give them too much firepower in that area. They've come into town. They've come more into the Nigerian continental area, and they're around our cities. We can almost see their camps from Abuja, Nasarawa. They're in Kogi, they're in bushes in Ondo State or War. We've seen the activities, so we shouldn't pretend that those things don't exist. But then there are medium-term solutions. We should start looking at, how do you use technology, for instance, to track, collect intelligence, because our security agencies also don't collect and share intelligence. Make sure there's central processing of intelligence. Make sure that you collect data accurately, biometric data, because the country is also highly infiltrated by, foreigners. A lot of these, foreign fighters from Niger, Chad, and other places across the northern part of Nigeria are also around, just rocking American havoc. And this is where the issue of national security holistically comes in. Because national security is not about beating up protesters, or looking for radio stations and TV stations to sanction for interviewing opponents of the government. National security has to do with how you define who is a citizen and national infrastructure, how to protect them, and to ensure that we have a permanent solution that don't go anywhere and lines that should not be crossed. I want to remove the army, for example, from town, let them protect the country territorially, then return police back to policing work, return civil defense to doing what civil defense should be doing, allow DSS to collect intelligence and not to be chasing after opponents of the government or people who write on Facebook and Instagram, and also stop them from watching BB Nigeria, because that's what they were doing when they detained me for 5 months. They don't do anything. They're just hanging around doing nothing. And also make sure that intelligence is collected. That was a joke, the BB Nigeria one. Intelligence is collected and processed, and they are, consistently worked on to ensure that whenever there is threat, they are detected in advance, and in most cases that these threats are liquidated before there's major public harm. So, and the last one, of course, is to deal with social security. With social security, everybody must have something for him that takes him away from crime. If people go to bed hungry every night, they will do something to get what they don't deserve because they are desperate. If you don't employ half of your youths, you are definitely going to get crime in return for your investment. There's nobody that can escape that. And if you don't, protect old people after they work for, 45 years and they retire and you don't pay their retirement, they will go back to crime or they will be part of your problem. So that social security protection is then the final security that the country will need so that people can go to sleep. And of course, you have to address issues. To address all of these other issues, you have to address several other issues, which I'm sure you...
That of course, will take us to the area of the economy and unemployment or underemployment, which my colleague would take up.
Okay. Because if you talk about social security, you still need to look at the large number of young Nigerians that are unemployed. Yes. And you cannot separate insecurity from unemployment, which you have said.
Absolutely.
So in your manifesto, what are your plans to take these young Nigerians away from the streets?
See, our manifesto talks about massive infrastructural investment. The US had several depressions, but I think the greatest one was in the 20s. And instead of that depression to force them to surrender to the rest of the world and start traveling to be carrying bags, it forced their leaders to think about how to invest in the US and develop the US into an economy that could survive on its own, that won't rely on. And that was one of the biggest things that happened to them. But what it did was to invest in public works, build infrastructure. They started building. Everywhere they could find an opportunity to build something, they built it there. And in building this infrastructure, they employed a lot of people. They were building railway. People started working in the railway sector. They were the ones who built. They were building schools. They were building bridges. And that immediate relief for the depression came from people going to work. It created, huge opportunities for them. And I have said it, I have massive plans to invest in electricity, for instance, particularly renewable energy. I want to create a solar farm in northern part of the country that could deliver up to 4,000 to 5,000 megawatts of electricity in 4 years. I've never stopped saying this. Now they're stealing some of the ideas, but they can't implement it. And that would not put less than 1 million young people at work. It doesn't mean whether you've been to university or not. There will be something to do. You see, each time they are building railway, and some of our parents used to tell us this as well, in railway lines, people got jobs along those railway lines. Even I, as a young person, I was one of the people that built the secondary school I went to. When the contract came, the man came to the village place we were playing soccer. I said, I got a contract to build a secondary school here. Who wants to make blocks? I went to them. I was 10 years old. I made a block. I remember I made 5 naira from moving block that built my... But that was my first employment. Since then, I never got employed in this country. Before I left in 1999, officially by government. So that massive works investment is going to bring employment. The number of teachers we need to teach all the kids in the education project I talk about will not be less than 600,000 immediately. And the number of nurses, doctors we need in this country is not less than 2 million. Now we've lost over 9,000 doctors to the UK and the US in the last 2 years due to, after the COVID, Canada is gulping our nurses. The same nurses and doctors we trained in the substandard schools that we are complaining about, they are now golden boys and girls. They have now entered the transfer window for international jobs. So that's why I keep saying it, that it doesn't matter where people go to school. It is how the brain develops that matters. There are some of us, when we arrived at the University of Lagos, we were ashamed to tell people the secondary school we attended and primary school, so we didn't go to Corona in Lagos. But when it's exam time, the Corona boys will be tapping you on the shoulder, please, can I see your paper? Because we developed our brains because we had to multitask growing up. Nobody had, food for us. We didn't have breakfast. We had to go to farm first and then jump into the lake on your way back from farm and then go to school, and by the evening your father and mother are waiting for you. So you are forced to develop faster than it should. It doesn't mean that, I'm not saying that people should go through the kind of hardship I went through to grow up, but the most important thing is that when we come back from farm after school, we are forced by our parents to go and do our homework. I still remember my homework in primary 4 was Ali and the Angels, where they used to talk about 419 in those days. But we had so much pleasure submitting our homework the next day because the teacher will call your name and you submit. But we had already done so much with it, and we didn't have electricity. Sometimes we appear in school the next day. I hope I'm not digressing too much. With our nostrils dark because of the lamp that we use in doing our homework assignment. So the development of the brain can happen anywhere. You just have to afford young people opportunity, and you'll be shocked.
Now, from all indications and from all we have heard so far, the Nigerian economy is in a terrible mess.
Yes.
Government officials have indicated that we are broke as a country.
Yes.
If you do get elected in 2023, you will be inheriting a broke economy. economy that is so dependent on oil, what steps will you take to refloat the economy and move it away from the dependence on just one product, oil?
Yes. Let me open this particular argument by saying that Nigeria is not broke, as in broke that they want you to believe. They are saying that Nigeria is broke because they don't have enough to take care of themselves. Because were Nigeria to be broke, the ministers who are revealing it will be resigning because they won't be able to survive even at their jobs. But I believe that, yes, Nigeria is entering a state of bankruptcy, bankrupted by its managers. And you can see those indications by way of how revenue is generated. They are practically printing money to pay workers. And I'm afraid that very soon, even the mint will run out of diesel. They won't be able to pay for diesel. Just like the airlines are not able to get aviation fuel. And it's an analogy that is necessary so that this can sink home. Nigeria's oil revenue is impacted, interestingly and ironically, at the time that oil sales are improving all over the world. Do you know why? Because Nigeria is unable to export the number of barrels of oil that it ought to be exporting because of Nigeria's bad habits in the past years. What was it? There was a time there was Niger Delta insurgency. They were supposed to resolve it. They refused. They solved it up to a point. Reverse the process by engaging in the crimes that led to the problem in the first place. Oil bunkering is back. But you know, oil bunkering is not carried out by ordinary people. It's carried out by the regular people in collaboration with officials of government, especially those guys in the paramilitary and military forces. You cannot get the badge of oil without license out of Nigeria without official collaboration and connivance. So we plug those areas immediately. I come from the Niger Delta area, and I'm warning people that it's better in their own interest if we want to restore everything of the lost oil per day and crude delivery to the world, to elect people who understand the problems and who understand some of the people that are causing the problem, because I know some of them as well, and I know what are the issues causing the problem. So that's number one. The issue you raise is how do you refloat the economy? Part of how you refloat the economy is by rebuilding your state, your country. Some of these public works ideas I talk to you about, there are international organizations, not organizations, agencies and funders out there that are willing to make these investments to come and build rail bridges. We saw with what China did and with all their horrid thing they did with that there's international funding available for development of countries. Not all of them are clean, and not all of them are good for you. That's a conversation for another day. But there are some that you can tap into to do this. And the moment you have that money flow coming, you would be surprised at how the economy will refloat, because you cannot talk about the refloating of Nigerian economy without electricity. You are wasting your time. You can't refloat the Nigerian economy without reviving the manufacturing sector. Nigeria must be producing something and selling in international market.
And that's
where you can generate that amount of money. For you to generate that amount of money, you also need confidence in the Nigerian market. For people to come in, you need to fix the security sector. You need to fix electricity, which is another sector that we need to talk about seriously before people can come here.
Okay,
let me just say one thing. When we start to talk about direct foreign investment in Nigeria today, they're not talking about anybody really directly investing in Nigeria. They're talking about people who bring in their own money for short-term loans or bonds. They sell it to Nigeria. They make at the highest interest rate. Sometimes they don't even tell you the interest rate. And before you know it, they collect their money. and they move on.
So I would have loved to ask you a question on inclusivity, the women as well as people living with disability. But as a follow-up to the question on the economy,
yes.
We have opportunities in Nigeria, 5 areas that we can just stay away from oil and gas, not be dependent on oil and gas. Agriculture is there. There is natural resources. We have it. Nigeria is rich. There's art and entertainment. Recall that in the Jonathan administration, art and entertainment contributed to what made our economy grow, even above South African economy. So how do you intend to take a look at this and try and remove our concentration on the oil and gas sector?
This is what I'm saying. You see, before you leave oil, since it's your primary source of, you have to have a diversification plan. We are talking about this areas. There are several areas, even technology itself.
Aviation and all that.
You know, it's massive for us. What about the inflow of money from the money transfers that we get from abroad? Some of them is even more than the Nigerian annual budget on a yearly basis. But for you to encourage more of these citizens to bring in their money, you must have a country that they can invest in. If Nigeria is working today, not at the level of US or UK or any, just like, if we're working like Ghana, this country can almost survive on remittances, because people will not only remit money, but they will bring the money physically, because they will be coming for holidays. They come and visit families, relatives. There's no Nigerian, because I lived in the US for 20 years. There's no Nigerian that is coming to visit Nigeria that doesn't have $10,000 in his pocket, at least. And they are not taking back a dime with them. But how many Nigerian or Nigerians today would live anywhere they are to come and visit, when every day they have to read about Boko Haram, bandits, kidnappers, armed robbers, government officials conniving and colluding with all of these things. So we will do that. So that's why we need, not sometimes, but in serious situations and countries around the world that have gone past this kind of adversity that we're in, the first thing we do is to look to elect leaders that can instill confidence and hope, not only from their people alone, but from the rest of the world, to say, hey, it is time to look at Nigeria. If you go and look at what Mandela represented in South Africa after he left prison, you can't really, most people will know, if you go to South Africa and when you have serious conversation, they'll tell you that Mandela didn't really do much for them. And I think that's why Mandela was very respectful of himself enough to say, after one time, I'm gone. But the fact that there's a moral figure in South Africa that the world can troop to and say, look, I've got $50 million and I know you won't steal it. Use this to do this for South Africa. That was what opened up South Africa. That's where you start from.
There's a lot that we need to talk about. Exactly. Not more time to deal with it. I just ask you to, in 60 seconds, give the last words to Nigerians. Why should they vote for you in 2023?
The Nigerian people have to make the choice this time around to look at themselves and look at me and say, look, here comes one of us who has consistently stood, never wavered, never compromised, and whose agenda and position is known and is not hidden, and never left you alone. And that person has come to lead you out of darkness. This is light right here. And I'm not being religious. I am just being prophetic.
Thank you so much, Omoyele Sowore. He is the presidential candidate of the African Action Congress, AAC.
All right, thank you. We appreciate your coming today. Hopefully, we'll still be talking with you towards the 2023 presidential election. And don't go away so soon. Tomorrow is another day. We still have to talk more with presidential candidates.
So we wish you the very best in the contest. And of course, we look forward to hosting more of the presidential candidates. Bye for now.